If you're working harder than ever and still relying on job titles, performance reviews, and just do your best, but your team feels really confused, disengaged, or burned out, this might be what's happening. No one really knows what they're doing. Today, we're breaking down why lack of role clarity is quietly killing performance, motivation, and trust, even in the best of companies. So, this conversation is for leaders and employees who feel busy but not aligned. David Cohen is here to discuss exactly that role clarity. He's a business leader and founder of DS Cohen and Associates, and he helps organizations do just that, create role clarity. So I'd love to jump right in. David, it's great to see you. I'm curious as to why so many people feel so confused or disengaged at their jobs.
Well, a lot of it has to do with two things. One is they're giving a role according to a job description, and they have certain expectations from that which don't match up to reality. So they get into a role and therefore they're expected to do things or not do things that they thought they should be doing. And the other part of it is leaders don't communicate goals very clearly. So when goals are ambiguous, it leaves the person the autonomy to try to make their own decisions, and often those are the wrong decisions. So as a result of that, there's this confusion in the workplace. And when it comes and backfires, people get disheartened, disillusioned, and aren't sure why they're there.
Yeah. So if leaders are still relying on job descriptions, titles, and reviews, why isn't that enough?
Because job descriptions are usually dated the day they're written. Job descriptions are generic in nature. They're general. They're meant to cover everything. And sometimes by covering everything, they miss the specifics of what that job is because there's a ocean of skills and knowledge and background and licenses and all this other stuff that the person's supposed to have, but they can't do all of that all the time. Their role is set up to do a specific job, which is limited in scope, and therefore they have to have clarity as to what it is. And they also have to have clarity that what is expected of them will enable them to achieve the outcomes they want to achieve. So sometimes that's where we get role ambiguity, we get role conflict, we get all these different aspects of role behavior. So, an individual is willing to do their job is role acceptance. So I want to just go through a couple of points here. Role acceptance is when somebody's willing to do the job. It doesn't mean they're going to do it successfully, they're just willing to do the job. Role expectations then is what others think you're supposed to be doing. So it's the expectation of others think that you think an individual is responsible for doing and they feel should be done. So there's role acceptance and role expectations. Now, there's also, if you add to that, a role concept and what the individual thinks he or she should be doing is the concept of the role. Now, here's the problem. What happens when the role concept, which the person is willing to do, role acceptance, is in conflict with role expectations. So
There's
there
no
that's
clarity.
that's when you get they're doing my job, or why is this falling through the cracks, or why does this person do that when I'm doing that already? So now we have confusion in the workplace, creates animosity, things begin to fall through the cracks. You get that, great corporate salute, you know, it ain't my job, it's
Yeah.
theirs. Don't blame me. All this other stuff because of a lack of role clarity.
Yeah. Or people just shut right down and then they don't
Right.
want to do anything because they have no clue what's going on. So what is the cost of this? Like what happens when there's no clear expectation and communication? Like what happens?
Well, work doesn't get done. People realize on a project late in the project that something didn't happen. You get a lot of blame them behavior, a lot of excuse management. And as a result of that, there's delays, there's overruns, there's bad feelings. You know, he or she's always getting me blamed for not doing my job when they're not doing their job. Role clarity is something which is very difficult to achieve if it's not set out, I believe, in a team environment where everybody in the group can understand what each other's doing. And that's what, I've done a lot of exercises on role clarification over the years with groups where there's been a lot of what I call role conflict. And role conflict is simply, it's when one person thinks that the other person's pursuit is their goal. So role conflict is you're doing the job that I'm supposed to be doing. You're achieving the outcomes that I'm supposed to be working on. Now we have role conflict, and one person, therefore, seen as obstructing the other person. They're preventing me from doing my job successfully. And that's when, the stuff we're talking about is beginning to fall through the cracks. And the other part is when there's role ambiguity. So role conflict is when two people think they have the same goals and objectives. And role ambiguity is when, due to a lack of clarity by the manager or the organization, or due to a lack of clear responsibilities, uh, two people think they're doing the same thing, or individuals may exhibit role ambiguity because they're less capable of doing the job that they were asked to do. So they were hired for the job. They're not capable of doing the job. It's not clear what they're supposed to be doing. And now they have role ambiguity. Why am I doing this? Why am I in this role? So there's role conflict, there's role ambiguity, and role efficacy really only happens when the perception that one has of their capability and the experiences they have make them successful in the role. So role efficacy is when there's alignment with understanding my goals, how they fit into the team's goals. I have the capability to do the job. I'm willing to do the job, and therefore I'm going to do it successfully. So there's all these different aspects of role responsibility. And only then, when those are clear, people can get along in the team. Because to me, teamwork is defined simply as the integration of roles, goals, and responsibilities. When roles are not clearly integrated and you wind up with either role conflict or role ambiguity, you or role expectations are not clear because everybody thinks somebody else is supposed to do something, then you have a team that's not going to be effective. So one of the first things people need to do when they're building a team, and that's, it's when they're forming, is they need to really take the time to address role clarity. And by
Mhm.
addressing role clarity, people have the art, have the ability to negotiate. You know, that's your expertise. You should be working on this, or I need your help in doing this, or I can volunteer to help you in doing this. And that becomes a very more of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I feel like if people don't know what they're doing and it's not clearly defined, that creates a lot of psychological like turmoil. It makes people feel unsafe and they don't trust anybody and they feel like people don't trust them. Because I know
Yeah,
in the past when I had a role that wasn't clearly defined, and I saw someone else doing my role, it made me feel like the leader didn't have the trust and faith that I would do it properly. That's why the other person was doing it. But the problem was no one knew what was going on. So no one had the clarity, but it created such like a psychological turmoil in my brain. I just felt so unsafe and it was like my body couldn't relax.
yeah. There's a concept that when this happens and one person in the group is the outlier and you have groupthink in the role that they're supposed to do it, then there becomes even greater pressure in the group that this person who didn't think it was their responsibility, everybody else does, groupthink now comes in play and makes that person even more of an outsider, more uncertain of what they're supposed to do. So yeah, you need to be able to have that role clarity so you feel that you're making a contribution. Because one thing that's going to, make sure that somebody is having a good employee experience, a good employee experience is only when they feel they're making a contribution that's meaningful to the work that they're doing and get recognized and acknowledged for that. That's going to lead to a good experience. And
Mhm.
SHRM just came out with its 2006 workforce report, where it says that the key issue for the coming year is going to be ensure that employees have a good workforce experience. That good
Mm.
workforce experience goes along with a number of things, that they're aligned with the values of the organization. They believe that the organization and their contribution is meaningful. But in order to achieve that, they have to have role clarity that the work they're doing is meaningful. And if, in fact, the workforce experience is successful, is positive, then it's a no-brainer. Workforce, employee engagement falls in place, because no matter what you do with employees, if the experience is negative, all of those foosball tables and basketball courts and parties and all that becomes meaningless, because they're not feeling good about themselves at work. So it's workforce experience will lead to workforce engagement, but without a positive workforce experience, engagement is the golden ring on the merry-go-round that people just keep missing.
Yeah, for sure. So, how detailed does a role need to be? Like, how do you begin to define a role?
Well, there's task specifics, there's reward systems that go along with it, there's all sorts of things that go into it, but it's really an easy exercise. So let me give away sort of the goal, what I consider the 4 questions that everybody in the group has to answer. According to the job description, according to what my bosses told me, what are the role expectations that I have? What are the things that I um, what are the things that I am in theory supposed to do? And
Mm,
therefore, I need to be able to read those out. I mean, I know that these are the things that the job description my boss said that I have to do. So I am able to do those fairly clearly. And it's not a problem if, in fact, everything is clear. Now, the second part, or the second question is, what are the role, what is in the role that I take on for myself? What are the things that I enjoy doing in the job and for the group I'm in, which are beyond the job description? Which are the things that I just know I'm good at, I enjoy doing, that I get away with, and I feel good about? Those are the first 2 questions. So what is expected of me, and what do I contribute to the job over and above what's expected of me? Third question is interesting. What do I need from other people to be successful in my job? How
mm.
can other people, based on what I expect of them in their roles, what can they do to help me be successful? And the fourth question is really interesting. It's, what can I contribute to other people for them to be successful? Now, all of a sudden, when you sit in a group and each person has worked those things out beforehand, and they start hearing, wait a second, that's what I enjoy doing. Why are they doing it? It's not part of their job, it's my job. And you start to understand, oh, that person can really help me be successful. I should be approaching them to get this information or get this support. And they should be approaching me. And if they don't, I can go to them, because they said they need the help from me, so I can approach them. So answering these 4 questions, um, you know, really helps you understand in that group setting where there is role conflict, where there's role ambiguity, what is the role expectation, what is the role experience. So there's clarity in, okay, now we can work together and we have what I call the definition of a team, an integration of roles, goals, and responsibilities. Because as that process rolls out, there has to be clarity of goals because if my goal is to do this, therefore all of that falls in place. But if my goal isn't defined correctly, I might be doing all the wrong things. So
Right.
it's really about getting people to understand each other, understand what they're doing on the job and how they contribute to each other's success. And so as a group, they can achieve what it is that they're supposed to achieve.
So how often should roles be revisited? Like, I mean, stuff evolves, companies change, they grow. How often should leaders be reviewing roles?
Well, it really depends. I mean, if they're putting a new process in, they're putting a new project in, they're changing the strategy. Obviously, roles should be clarified at the beginning of that process. If they haven't been clarified for a couple of years and everybody's just resting on the laurels and getting in a rut of doing what they're doing, when there's new people on the team, there should be some sort of activity which allows those new people to understand what others expect of them. It's not just what the manager expects of you. It's also what others that you work with expect of you. And I remember when we did this exercise in a very interesting way with a university varsity hockey team, University of Notre Dame, where there was each player has their responsibility, but they really weren't talking to each other and communicating about how they can now be each other be successful and what they needed from other players on the team to be successful. So
Mm,
there was disagreements. There was, like, why aren't you doing this? Well, I didn't think it was my job or this. When they finally got that clarified, they were able to accomplish a season that took them to, the NCAA championship round. So, and that was the first time in the school's history that they got that far. So,
wow.
role clarification and how one's behaviors interact in that job really help each other understand how can they contribute to each other's success. It's
Mm,
nobody works as an island unto themselves.
yeah. One thing that comes to mind is how do you create clarity without micromanaging? Because that was one thing that I remember back in the day, like my leader was such a micromanager, and that drove me away. So as nobody wants someone over their shoulder.
Um, yeah, it's if you set this out correctly at the beginning of the process, therefore, in order for this to work, your expectations, your goals have to be clear. And
Hmm.
once everybody agrees on how they can help each other and others can help them be successful, that's when the manager should just back off and go off and be doing something else to help the team grow and get more activities, get involved in other things. When we talk about the four stages of team development, forming, storming, norming, and performing, there's really a fifth stage, which is the team disintegrates, or so the team doesn't have to disintegrate. That manager should be leaving that team alone because they're performing and going off and finding other things. That's when the team leader has the freedom to become strategic. But a
Right.
lot of a lot of people just, and that's part of role conflict and role ambiguity, because a lot of managers who got really happy doing the job they did get promoted and don't want to give up their job, and it's no
Right.
longer their job. So now we got all sorts of issues with roles, and the impact is, as you just said, you have a feeling that they're micromanaging me. They feel they're just enjoying doing their job, or
Right.
they give you the feeling that I'm not qualified, I'm not good enough, they're stepping on my toes, and I don't have the freedom to do my job. And so managers have to be really careful about that. And that's why a role clarification exercise like this will really help people understand as the manager, now your team knows what they need to do. Check in with them that they're doing it. Set up a check-in schedule every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, whatever it is. Set benchmarks for what has to be achieved by those 3 weeks or whatever, and then disappear and do your job.
Yeah, for sure. That just goes to show how important communication is. But I know that a lot of employees feel afraid to speak up, especially when their role isn't clear, because they're already feeling uneasy. So, what is a simple way that you can start this conversation safely that makes someone feel like they have the ability to open up?
I think you ask them those 4 questions. What
Yeah,
is what is expected of you in the job? What do you do because you enjoy doing it or you feel that you can do it really well? What can you do to, what can others do to contribute to your success? And what can you do to contribute to other success? And there will be things in there that people are going, like the manager, going to say, well, that's not your role. Well, why is it not my role if these are my goals? If this is what
right,
I'm supposed to do. So by giving them that platform, you give them the ability to speak, not because they have a concern or a complaint, but because you ask them for specific information, they're sharing. And as long as you don't react inappropriately and belittle their answer, you've opened up communications and it can be clarified in 4 months. Have we got this right? There are the things that maybe somebody else can do that contribute. And you find out during this exercise, there are things that people know that you didn't even know. It wasn't on the resume. They didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't um, ever say they can do something. And all of a sudden they say, oh, if somebody needs this, I can do that. I've done that before. I'm interested or I'm studying that now. And you can open up communications. But if the manager is going to micromanage and tell everybody what to do, there's going to be all sorts of role issues.
Mm. Should someone be dabbling in someone else's role if it's necessary, or should roles be clearly defined and like say I knew that I had the time to help this other person out, but it wasn't my role in general terms. Should I be doing it or should I keep it like so that that's that person's role and my role is my role?
It
Should
really
they
depends.
ever lead together?
Yeah,
I'm
it
like
depends on
weave
the
together.
depends on the culture of the company, but
Mm,
always ask permission. Don't ask forgiveness in that case. Because if you ask permission, like, I see that you're overwhelmed, or I see that, you keep reviewing this. I've got some free time. I want to help you out. Is that okay? Do you need help? Can I show you maybe a shortcut? Whatever, but ask permission first. And if you're doing
yeah,
role clarity, that those questions of what can I do to help other people and what can other people do to help me? One of the things that I might say is, well, other people can help me if they see me struggling, is they ask me if I need any help. Ah, okay. So now I've given permission to others to offer that advice or offer that assistance. So it's a
right,
powerful process.
right. Um, and then is it up to the leader to communicate that to the team that this has been arranged? Like, because I know that if I saw someone stepping outside their role and I didn't understand why, then it would confuse me as an employee.
Well, no, that has to be clarified in the role clarification exercise. People expect that to happen if in fact that's part of the agreement. If
Right,
part of the agreement is nobody talks, once this is done, don't interfere with other people's roles, then yeah, you're not going to step outside your role to help somebody. Again, it goes
right,
back to the culture and the nature of the work, the nature of the organization's values.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It comes down to just clear communication. And I feel like roles can change like quite often, like with development. And so like just going over those like and making sure that everyone knows what they're doing. Like it's so powerful when a team is all on the same page, like you said, like you can, I don't know, I'm thinking of the Grey Cup. You can win the Grey Cup. If your football team is on the same page and they know what their role is, you're gonna go far to the top. But I'm picturing a team falling apart because no one knows what to do. It's like everyone's standing around and they're thinking like, should I be doing that? Or is this person going to be doing that? Oh, that's such a chaotic feeling.
Yes, it is. And here's the thing that if when roles do change, if somebody in the team gets promoted, that means somebody new is doing their job. And that's when they continue to do their job. So what they have to understand is what got them to be successful and promoted is no longer their responsibility
Mm,
because it won't get them to the next level. It'll keep them at the level they're at. So once they're in a new role, they have to understand what got them there is not going to get them further. And they have to
right.
understand this is what got me here. Let me mentor and share that with the new person in my role so they can be successful and I can move on to do my job.
Yeah, because that person could literally prevent the new person coming in from being successful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why are
Yeah.
they still doing? Well, I joke with employees where bosses seem to always want to do the job of everybody else. I said,
Mm,
you got a great job. You can come in, show your face, go to the gym, work out, have a long lunch, come back and know your work's done because your boss has done it for you.
right.
And they'll never get angry at you for not doing your work, but you can do all sorts of other things. And
Right.
bosses sometimes get into that habit of let me help out. Helping out becomes doing the job for them.
Right. And then that's where that quiet resentment starts to build.
Yes.
So, if listeners out there remember like one thing about role clarity from today, what should it be?
That role ambiguity and role conflict come when roles are when different people have different expectations of the roles and that people need that are working together have to have a mutual expectation of what that role is. So not necessarily, I don't know, I have a role, I think it's this, but I better make sure everybody else agrees. So the role expectation, other people's feelings about the role is what I think I will do. It's my role acceptance. So what I've accepted to do is what other people expect me to do. And therefore will have efficacy in the role.
Mm. So, what about the person out there that is like, oh my God, this is so my team. We are so out of sorts. Can you give leaders or employees a bunch of like maybe 5 tips that they can do this week to start creating more clarity?
Well, first thing is they have to make sure that everybody understands the role objectives and expected outcomes, and they have a mutual understanding of it. They have to identify what is prescribed in the role, job description that they need, skill, knowledge, experience to be able to execute that role. That has to be clear. And they also have to look at the role ambiguity. In other words, they have to look at what do people do because they enjoy doing it that might cause problems. And then they have to ask people, what these are the things I need from you in order for me to be successful. And these are the things I can contribute to you for you to be successful. And then allow people to have that flow of information. I think, but
Mm.
and if the boss doesn't think that it's time well invested, there's always going to be that uneasiness about the role that you're in.
Right, right. So, David, thank you so much for this conversation. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, I work with organizations on helping them identify the behaviors of the values, the authentic behaviors of the authentic values of the organization, and then help them align hiring processes and other talent management activities so people get those behaviors reinforced, rewarded, developed, et cetera. And I work with organizations and executives on ensuring that they, as leaders, have the courage to live their values, learn how to say yes, and learn how to say no.
Mm,
And I've recently written a book called Selecting the Best, which looks at how do you identify the authentic values and behaviors, And then how do you hire people that fit the culture, fit the values of the organization? And that is the first step, because if you don't have the right people, you're not going to have the right execution.
Yeah, it starts with the people for sure, for
Yeah, it's
sure.
always the
Um,
people.
Always the people. Yeah, I still come back to that image in my mind of Starbucks. Like literally, I was there last week again, and like everyone's singing songs together, and it's just like a fun place to be. That to me is like the goal of an organization. And I mean, I'm not saying everyone's singing songs all the time, but everyone just seemed so in flow together, just doing what they needed to do, and the vibe and the energy was just on point. I just keep going back to that organization.
That's great.
Yeah. So, where can people find out more information about you?
They could either contact me on LinkedIn, or they can contact me at my website, which is sagltd.com.
Amazing. Do you have any last minute things you want to leave the audience with today?
That enjoy your work and make sure that your values align with the company's values and vice versa, and that you understand what it is that you do that contributes to something bigger than yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation, David.
Thank you for the time.
And to our audience, get clear on the role that you're doing because it can provide you with a lot of relief. Clarity brings so much relief. When you know what you're doing, you actually become excited about what you're doing. Until next time, take care, everybody.